All right there, gang. I want to thank you all for showing up here today because today is a very important day. Because today is the day that we have a conversation that we've been needing to have for a long, long time. It's about the X-Men, you see. They stink. They're like 2-day-old fish. No one likes them anymore. They're old news. Get them out of here. We need to talk about how we're going to get rid of the X-Men because, as I said, no one likes them, and that is an indisputable fact. I still like the X-Men. What? Where are you pointing? Hey, who are you guys? Why are you picking me up? Where are you throwing me? As I was saying before I was so rudely interrupted, everyone hates the X-Men now, so we have to get rid of them. One by one, I want these books canceled. What are we going to be replacing them with? Why, the Inhumans, of course. Everyone loves the Inhumans, have for the longest time. I don't know why we didn't have multiple Inhuman books out to begin with. They're just like the X-Men, only better in every way, shape, or form, and they're from space. Space is always better than Earth. We should have been focusing on the Inhumans the entire time. Yellow.
Sir, the Fox Disney deal went through.
Good news, gang! The X-Men are back, and we need to be striking this iron while it's hot. I want to see brand new, fresh ideas for X-Men books from every single one of you by the end of the day. Yellow.
The Inhumans are here for their 5 o'clock meeting.
Never heard of them. Folks, it's time to talk about the X-Men, because much to our delight, the X-Men are still a thing. In fact, not only are they a thing, they're kind of bigger than they have been in almost 30 years. Yes, Dawn of X has revitalized the X-Men in a way that exceeded all expectations. Not just in terms of sales, but also in terms of reception, as House of X, Power of X, and many of the new series to spring from them have received great praise from critics and from audiences. And with the announcement of the first big X-Men crossover underneath this new Dawn of X banner, it looks like there's no sign of this success slowing down anytime soon. But here's the thing. We've talked many times on this channel about how comics do too many events or too many relaunches, and yet here we are with a giant relaunch and an event, and it's working out great. It's winning on all fronts. Hell, it even made my cold event-dreading heart grow 3 times its size. I love these books, and that's because Dawn of X did so many things right. Yes, as I said, I tend to scowl and wag my finger at most events and relaunches, but I'm not opposed to the idea of events and relaunches, just most of them aren't done well. But Dawn of X has been done so well, it's almost supernatural. Dawn of X has been done so well that it actually makes me want more events from this line of titles. Dawn of X has been done so well that I am totally okay praising it this much, fully knowing that if it all falls apart a year from now, I will look like a fool and end up on that poorly aged thing's Twitter account. So today on Comic Class, we're going to break this down. We're going to look at why Dawn of X worked and examine what the rest of the comic book industry can learn from it. First thing that Dawn of X did is it realized it had to get all the X-Men fans back. And how did it do that? By canceling all the X-Men books.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for them.
Yes, in the day and age where events keep getting bigger and bigger, comic book companies believe that the best way to build an event is just to put out tie-in after tie-in. Who cares if the story spins out of just one book? Give it 30 tie-ins! I'm sure they'll all be important and no one will have any problems buying them all. But the Dawn of X titles didn't do that. No, instead, it went the exact opposite direction. Rather than spinning from few into many, it canceled all the X-Men series to launch just 2 books, which, real talk, were essentially just one book over 2 titles, House of X and Power of X. This is a genius idea because when you're going to have an event that changes the face of multiple books for years to come, you know what you don't need? Excess issues to clutter the whole thing up. Listen, not only does having a ton of tie-in issues make matters more confusing, with possible important plot points for Book A happening in Book B and D, but oddly not in Book C, and who even knows what's happening over in Book E, but also, if you have something happening in your big event that's going to be important and everyone needs to know about it, trimming off all the fat is probably a smart idea. You don't want someone saying, I can only afford one book right now. So do I read the regular series that I've been reading? Or do I drop that so that I can read the event? The event that will affect the regular series I've been reading, but now have to stop reading so I can read the event that will affect the book I had to stop reading. And even if you can buy everything out there, it makes the story and the message of your event way more cohesive if you go from A to B, instead of going from A to E and having your audience constantly stopping and saying, wait, but Wolverine is doing this at this moment over here in book B, and Cyclops is over in book C, so why is he doing that right now when in the event he's doing this, and when exactly is any of this set? Not to mention, if you want people to read your event that will lead into several new series, canceling all the other series related to it is a good way to make audiences say, well, I guess if I want to read an X-Men story, I'll read House of X. It's kind of my only option right now. You're essentially guaranteeing that the audience that needs to know about this book will now read this book, and they'll likely be invested in the future storylines to spin out from it. Speaking of the future storylines to spin out from it, second lesson comic book companies should learn: start your spin-offs small. So often an event will lead into massive releases of new books. 10, 15, upwards of 20 books can spin out of one event. House of X and Power of X led into 6. That's it. Just 6. And you know what happened to those 6 books? They sold pretty darn well, and audiences seem to have enjoyed them. Listen, I don't like bringing up sales numbers because A, comic book companies are super secretive about the actual numbers, and all we have to go off of is one website on the internet that provides pretty close estimations, but also because there's so many other factors to what makes a book a success besides single issue sales numbers, including trades, digital sales, and more. But I have to bring it up here because as of January this year, the most recent date with figures out at the time of this recording, all of these new X-Men books are still selling in the top 50. Hell, Excalibur at the moment is selling in the top 25. Name me the last time an Excalibur title was selling in the top 25. I'm not even sure those words just came out of my mouth, they're so crazy. And do you know why these books are doing so well? Is it because they're all good? Well, hey, I like them, critics like them, most readers like them, but this is the entertainment industry. And if the Michael Bay Transformer films bringing in enough money to buy their own nation has proven anything, it's that quality doesn't equal sales. No, the reason why these books sold so well is because after a great storyline in House of X perfectly set up the new status quo, Marvel decided to launch only 6 titles, a perfectly manageable amount of books. 6 books is just enough to provide variety, but not too many to overwhelm readers. I'd say that most comic book fans who were already reading a few X-Men books before this could easily add these 6 titles to their pull list, at least for the first couple of issues, just to check them out. And when readers can check out each of your new titles, they can find the ones they like. Every time that company launches a dozen new titles all at once, guess what? Readers aren't going to pick them all up. They will have to take their best guess at what they're going to like from this wide selection, meaning they're not even going to get to half of them. So the perfect book that they've always wanted could be right over there, and they'll never know. But 6 books? Easy, bring them on. Most events treat their spin-offs like the start of a race. Just pull the starter pistol and watch them all go at once. But Dawn of X treated its books like a plant. House of X and Power of X were the seeds. Now these books are the buds that are sprouting out. And now we're getting more X-Men books with Wolverine, Cable, X-Factor, Hellions, and Children of the Atom. And while I will admit, I think this might be a few too many new books, and they might start flying a little too close to that sun, this is still the right way to do this. Slowly let this spread out so that way the readers who jump on these few books can slowly start to check out the others. Everybody checks out those 5 brand new titles, they find the ones they like, drop the ones they don't, and then, a couple months later, 5 new titles come out. And they can check out the first issue of these new series, then find the ones they like, drop the ones they don't. Everybody will be able to slowly explore these new titles and find the ones that speak to them. As I said, this approach where you're launching just a handful of new titles one at a time, it's like cultivating a garden. Whereas with a normal comic book relaunch, it's like having to cut your way through a jungle. And speaking of the speed at which these books come out, that's the next thing comics need to learn from Dawn of X. weekly books can work. I've said this many times, but in the modern day and age where entertainment is available to us everywhere and is coming from all directions, yeah, it's harder for comics to compete. I mean, Netflix puts out a brand new 13-episode long TV series every single week, and I can watch that all on my phone. And that's not even talking about the rise of YouTube and Twitch, where content creators don't just have to pump stuff out weekly, many of them have to figure out a way to create content daily in a never-ending cycle of supply and demand on a platform that's constantly trying to kick you off of it, so that way they can get more space over to late-night talk show millionaires who don't even need YouTube, but they're gonna take all of your ad revenue anyway, and then the algorithm changes it. What was I talking about again? Oh, right, the X-Men. Yeah, we need to start talking about weekly comics, everyone. As I was saying before I blacked out there, yes, in the day and age where entertainment is being provided to you faster than ever, a book where you read it for 10 to 15 minutes, then you have to wait a month to get the next installment of it, isn't exactly the best format anymore. I mean, just look at comics from around the globe. Shonen Jump sells literally millions of copies each week, and while there are many reasons for that, one of the big ones is because it's weekly. You read it, get to the cliffhanger, next week, bam, there's the new issue. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying, oh, it's just that easy. Just write more, write faster, hire more artists. Yeah, that's insane. Trust me, I fully realize how difficult it would be for most writers to keep a weekly series going. It's a challenge that I don't think most fans out there can comprehend, and I'm impressed by anyone who can keep something like that going for an extended period of time. But when it comes to an event, to something that is a limited series, yeah, it's time we start moving towards weekly releases. The whole point of an event is to engage the audience, to grab their attention and not let it go. And how often have you picked up a giant event, it got halfway through, and you just thought, I don't even care anymore. I'm at part 4 of 8 and I can't bring myself to wait a whole other month to get to part 5. I can't do this. Just let me know who dies and how everything changes forever. Hell, for that matter, how many times have you started an event, then it faced one massive delay after another, and now something that was supposed to wrap up in April is going to end up in August, and the books that were set after it have already lapped them, spoiling what the ending was going to be. Or worse yet, the book gets delayed, and then because it's delayed, they decide to rewrite it? Something that I've actually seen happen multiple times in recent history. I'll never forget that when Civil War II got delayed, Brian Michael Bendis said it's a good thing it got delayed because it gave them an opportunity to come up with a better ending. I will give you all a moment to think about how this was a story about someone who could see the future and yet they didn't know the future of the book when they were writing it. But this happens even to good events. Secret Wars was also delayed, and as a result, they added an extra issue on so they could alter the ending. And yes, the ending was great. The event was wonderfully paced out. Even with these delays, they were able to alter the story around in a way that made it work. But this was still one of the biggest events in Marvel history, so changing things around as the story went along still feels like a massive gamble. Now, Dawn of X was also a huge gamble, but it was a gamble in terms of what they were changing with these characters and the impact that would have on the Marvel Universe. But when it came to the actual structure of the event, you could tell it was a well-oiled machine, which is another thing that we can learn from Dawn of X. As I said, I do believe that we need to start making events weekly, but that will require far more work. It means you're probably going to need to have the entire thing done before the first issue even comes out, which is probably a good idea. If these storylines are going to change everything, if they're going to alter the entire face of the comic book universe, you should probably have that bad boy all written, rewritten, signed, sealed, and delivered before the first issue even hits stands. If your event is going to affect an entire line of books, it needs to run like clockwork. And when you read House of X and Power of X, you can tell there was no improving on that. Everything was planned and everyone was on the same page. That's exactly why it was able to work so well as a weekly series. And as I said, that weekly release schedule kept readers picking up issue after issue. When there was a cliffhanger or a huge question, we talked about, we theorized about, we got excited for it. And then, next week, bam, the mystery deepened, or a brand new question rose up. Point is, we didn't have time to get bored. We didn't have time to stop thinking about. The weekly release schedule kept that momentum going. And all of the Dawn of X titles learned from this as well. At the end of House of X and Power of X, the hype train was chugging along at full speed, and each of these new Dawn of X titles have been almost bi-weekly. Again, not giving audiences any time to get tired or forget about these books. It didn't give readers time to stop being excited for the X-Men. And speaking of being excited for the X-Men, that brings us to the final lesson to take away from Dawn of X. The final reason why it was such a huge success: it just treated the X-Men right. Now hold up, I know that when I say that, a lot of people out there are going to instantly picture something in their mind. They're going to think that what I mean is, oh, it understood the X-Men, or it knew exactly what an X-Men storyline should have been. No, not at all, because both of those elements are completely subjective. I could lay out for you a list of all the things that to me make a perfect X-Men storyline, and half the audience will agree, half the audience will disagree. And even among the people who agree that that's what makes a perfect X-Men storyline, there will still be a divide among the people who agree or disagree upon how well this storyline captured those elements. So no, that's not what I mean. When I say that Dawn of X treated the X-Men right, what I mean is that it didn't... What's the technical term for this? Alright, all over them. Yes, you see, Dawn of X did one thing early on. It came in here and said the X-Men are kind of a big deal. The storyline began with the X-Men founding their own nation and telling everyone around the world they better get in line and pay mutants respect or else. There was a tone to this storyline that was essentially, the mutants have been down for so long that now it's time for them to be up. And you better believe audiences appreciated that. Not because the X-Men fans just wanted someone to come in here and massage their fandom ego. No, because the X-Men fans just wanted someone to stop breaking their toys for 5 minutes. Little story, funny story, you guys will enjoy this. But at the end of last year, we put out a video counting down the top 20 comic book characters of the decade. And there was one viewer in particular who was enraged that we didn't include any X-Men on the list. And in case that audience member is watching today's video, I'd just like to say, of course I didn't include any X-Men on the list. Marvel spent the last 10 years trying to get rid of them. Because of the way that Fox and Disney split the rights to the X-Men, Marvel spent the majority of the last decade taking one of their most beloved franchises, one of the most important corners of their universe, and kept trying to scrub them from existence with extra strength bleach. Wolverine? Wolverine who? Never heard of him. Cyclops? Nah, nobody here by that name. Maybe he's an IDW character. Have you asked Valiant? Maybe they know him, not us. And here's the thing. They also did this with the Fantastic Four, but the Fantastic Four at least got a send-off with Reed Richards having his biggest clash ever with his arch-enemy Dr. Doom, and they got a happy ending heading off into the stars to forever explore and create as a family, a beautiful message for Marvel's first family. The X-Men, on the other hand, it felt mean-spirited. They didn't just want the X-Men gone, they wanted them to suffer. The X-Men were being killed off one by one. They had a giant cloud of poisonous gas going around the planet, choking them to death. Hell, the cloud didn't just kill them, they even stopped to turn to the audience and say, the cloud sterilized the mutant gene so no more mutants could ever be created. Jesus, Marvel, did the X-Men run over your dog? Sleep with your wife? What was it? Because this isn't business anymore. This is personal.
I want him dead. I want his family dead. I want his house burnt to the ground. I want to go to the middle of the night. I want to piss on his ass.
X-Men fans had to spend years just watching their beloved characters have the world's slowest mob hit performed on them. And even after Disney bought Fox, even after there were no legal issues anymore, and Marvel got 100% of the revenue off the X-Men again, what was the first storyline that we got with the X-Men? A storyline where the X-Men appeared to all die, and a cure was made for the X gene, and all the mutants started to be wiped out again. Despite the fact that's literally what we had been getting almost non-stop for 10 years now. Well, at least Cyclops is back. Oh, what's that? We stabbed out his eye? Wow, even when we bring him back from the dead, he has to suffer. Cool, great, I love it. So when I say Marvel treated the X-Men right, what I mean is that after a decade of just having the crap emotionally kicked out of them, X-Men fans got treated to a storyline where the X-Men basically just got to win. And win big. Those X-Men fans got to watch as their favorite characters said, yeah, we're the best of the best, and it's time you better recognize how awesome we are. We're done being treated like comic book can fodder. Hell, they even went the ultimate extra mile and said that the X-Men found a way to defeat death. The X-Men, the team more closely associated with character deaths than any other in the medium, came in here and said, yeah, we're not doing that anymore. Oh, and all the characters who have died in the past, we're even bringing them all back. And as always, I do have to come in here and clarify, I'm not saying that you shouldn't have big deaths or dramatic turns or see our heroes suffer and face defeat and get dragged through the mud. I'm a Spider-Man fan. Seeing our hero get the snot kicked out of them is like 80% of this fandom. But after over a decade of not just being beaten down, but being beaten down with a vengeance, without a feeling of hope, with the community actually fearing that this could be the end of their beloved characters, and unlike most times when people say that, this time there were actually good reasons to think that. After so many years of that being the headspace of X-Men fans, yeah, you needed to come in here with a storyline where they kind of, for lack of a better term, just won. And there are stories all the time that feature characters in a positive tone and they're all about celebrating them, but they tend to just be single storylines, or sometimes even just a single issue, and they rarely get any attention or promotion at all from the companies themselves. The last time I can think of a storyline like this that the company actually really went out of its way to promote was Spider-Man Big Time, a storyline where it was supposed to be a celebration of Spider-Man winning, coming out on top, hitting the big time, for lack of a better term. And yet that event went only one storyline before Spidey lost his spider sense, saw a supporting character die, and even saw his best friend die. So yeah, it's arguable how successful the whole coming out on top thing went. My point is that yes, there should be ups and downs for a character, but for a long time, comic book companies believe you have to really hit audiences with the downs because the stressful hard times sell better. And again, I understand you need those insurmountable odds for the heroes to fight against, but the Dawn of X event proves, no, showing these heroes winning can still be loaded with shock, and drama, and mystery, and can still sell well. So maybe we should do more stuff like that. Maybe we can really promote and lean into the ups as often as we lean into the downs. I mean, like I said, the last time that I saw an event that really focused on the hero winning and was promoted by the company was Big Time. And that came out 10 years ago. So yes, the final lesson to learn from Dawn of X is that every now and again, we just need a break. Yes, I understand big events sell, and you know something? Fine. This is the comic book industry. It's an industry that runs on hype. You can't let that die down. You need to keep funneling that hype into the engine as fast as you can. But you don't always have to hype up death and doom. It's totally possible to have a huge storyline that celebrates the heroes and is still loaded with big stakes and world-changing twists. It's possible to win over an audience just by not doing this. So as you can see, when it comes to Dawn of X, yes, these titles have been overall really good. And the storyline that kicked them off, House of X and Power of X, was phenomenal. Those two books together made our #1 title of last year. But the reason why Dawn of X has succeeded so much doesn't have nearly as much to do with the quality of the books as it has to do with the tone of the event and, more importantly, with the distribution method of the books. As I've tried to make clear here today, there are many lessons that you can take away from these books, and I can only hope that the comic book community learns the right ones. Thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Comic Class, everyone. I hope that you guys enjoyed today's episode. I know it's still a very scary world out there, but I'm hoping that today's episode was able to give you a little bit of fun, a little bit of levity. I also hope that you guys are staying safe, that you're all staying indoors, that you're all washing your hands, and you're all looking out for each other in whatever way you possibly can. So if you guys want to follow me around the internet, you know the deal. You can find me on Twitter and Twitch at Professor Thorgy. And I also want to let you guys know that next week we are going to be skipping an episode. The reason we're going to be doing that is because I've mentioned this several times, but we do have a gaming channel called Thorgy's Arcade. There's a very large project I've been wanting to work on for that channel, and I told myself I want to have it done by April. We are now in April, so I need to take some time off to make sure that I get that done. But the other reason that we're taking next week off is because next week is my birthday. I'm not working on my birthday. That's a far more simple reason. But thank you guys very much for tuning in, and just stay safe out there. Bye, everyone.